worker in a food establishment that has a drive-thru, this is typically how a deaf or a hard of hearing person would order. They would write their order on a piece of paper, and then they would hand it to the person at the drive-thru. This is not always the ideal way to order. However, not every drive-thru is accommodating enough to make it so that they don't have to order that way. Along with that, there are ways to fix this though. And some stores are already starting to take steps in order to make their drive-thrus more accommodating for those who are deaf or hard of hearing. The first thing to acknowledge in this fight is that not all drive-thrus make it accommodating for deaf or hard of hearing customers. Can you think of anybody who's deaf? Do they go through the drive-thru much? Do they have a good experience? In a survey of some deaf or hard of hearing people, of them going through a drive-thru, in Regina McLeod's research, she explains that of the 14 drive-thru restaurants I visited, only 4 had a sign that notified people to pull forward if they had accessibility needs. Imagine not being able to communicate and order effectively at a drive-thru, or just being able to communicate in general because the other person just doesn't speak your language. And in another survey about the final experiences of deaf and hard of hearing people at a drive-thru, in conclusions asked 6,500 deaf people about drive-thrus, and 42% of those individuals surveyed left without even making a purchase. Now, some people think that deaf or hard of hearing people should go inside instead of going through a drive-thru. However, don't you think everybody should get the choice on whether or not they want to go inside or go through a drive-thru? Imagine having a bad day, not wanting to deal with people, just wanting to get your food and go home. This can be how anybody wants to be. So when you go through a drive-thru, it just makes life easier, and they should have the same luxury to be able to choose that as well. Now, how do we fix this? We need a solution. Paul Simmons talks about how the solution to the problem with drive-thrus could be just updating the ordering machines. And this is just one of the ways to fix it. There are many others as well. And explaining this more specifically, Ryan Daham explains how Culver's is taking action. When pressed, an order assistant button near the drive-thru menu alerts employees a deaf customer is in line. So Culver's just shows another one of the ways that you could help make your drive-thrus more accessible for those who are deaf or hard of hearing. So as you can see in this picture, this is a picture of the order assistant that you would see if anybody were to pull up to the drive-thru. So it just says deaf or other communication barriers, and then it goes on to say review menu, ring bell, and then pull forward. And then it also has the directions in Spanish, and then you have your button that you would push to alert one of the drive-thru workers that you are deaf. And then you would pull up, and they would hand you a form, and you would fill it out with their menu and hand it back to order. Now, not everyone is going to like this idea, but there are also many other ways to do this. So you could make anything more personable, or however you want to do that for your restaurant. The most important thing to remember through all of this, though, is to just be patient. Workers need to be patient and make sure to just calmly communicate in the best way they can with a deaf or hard of hearing customer. When being a worker at an establishment with a drive-thru myself, when a deaf or a hard of hearing person comes through, the easiest thing to do is to just write back and forth with them on a piece of paper. It's the most efficient thing to do. Now, some people think that deaf or hard of hearing people should not come through a drive-thru if they can't speak. However, I don't think it's fair to say to somebody that you have to go through speech therapy because not all deaf people can speak. So I feel like it's wrong to make somebody go through speech therapy just to go through a drive-thru. Now, along with this, some stores, though, have taken some very big leaps in order to make their drive-thrus more accessible. Starbucks is just one of those stores. Miss Meyer for USA Today describes how Starbucks opened a new store where the workers are familiar with basic sign language. Along with that, they're also familiar with basic coffee shop signs. This makes it easier for them to communicate with the customer and get their order in. Other stores need to take action as well. They can take action in their own way, Or in these ways. Imagine going through a drive-thru with no troubles and being able to communicate. This is how we do every day, and deaf people need to have that opportunity too. The accessibility of drive-thrus is a problem that needs to be fixed. Everyone needs to take action. You need to take action now. Not many drive-thrus are accessible, but updating ordering machines is just one of those solutions, and Starbucks is just one of the stores taking action right now. So, what are you going to do to make drive-thrus more accessible for the deaf or hard of hearing around you?